With memories of both world wars and the Great Depression still fresh in their minds, the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights spelled out what cannot be done to human beings and what must be done for them. That was a statement from the introduction to a series of 30 articles, published to put each of the Declaration's 30 articles into perspective. Along with related tweets, the series was published by the UN Human Rights Office to mark the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that took place in 1948 on the 10th of December. As we head into the new year, this report features a small sampling of extracts from that series to explore the enduring relevance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights with an eye to today's challenges and the rising crescendo of voices expressing alarm that in many ways the world's heading back to the 1930s and the kind of mistakes the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights sought to prevent from ever being repeated. In Article 1, the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights lay down the philosophy on which the Declaration is based, and reacting to the horrors of the two world wars, state that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And in Article 2, that everyone is entitled to all the freedoms listed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights without distinction of any kind. Article 3 proclaims the right to life, liberty, and security of person as a right essential to the enjoyment of all other rights. Nazi concentration camps and state-organized slaughter of millions simply because they were not the correct sort of person was fresh in the minds of the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and Article 3 and closely related Articles 5 and 9 against torture and arbitrary arrest were a firm renunciation of Hitler's belief in the supremacy of the state to control the lives of individuals. Article 3, as the first cornerstone of the Declaration, introduces Articles 4 to 21, in which other civil and political rights are set out. Roughly 1/4 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is devoted to legal human rights, as the drafters thought these provisions would entrench the strongest protection against future Nazi-type human rights violations. Article 6 applies across the entire spectrum of rights. If an individual is not recognized as a person under the law, numerous rights, including ones in the social and economic spheres, may be threatened. The right to a fair trial is at the heart of Article 10, that aims to prevent a repetition of the atrocities of Hitler's Germany, where compliant judges and courts served the aims of the Nazi regime, rather than the cause of justice in the interest of the people. Some guarantees of a fair trial, including the right to presumption of innocence, can also be found in Articles 6, 7, 8, and 11 of the Declaration. The right to seek and enjoy asylum from persecution is declared in Article 14. This right, in addition to the right to leave one's own country, Article 13, and the right to nationality, Article 15, can be traced directly to the events of the Holocaust. Many countries whose drafters worked on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were acutely aware that they'd turned away Jewish refugees, likely condemning them to death. In addition, many Jews, Roma, and others hunted by the Nazis had been unable to leave Germany to save their lives. The drafting of Article 16 involved reconciling different worldviews and overcoming religious objections. World War II had just ended, and the Communist bloc was critical of what it saw as U.S. restrictions on women's rights at the time. The article was also a response to Nazi laws prohibiting interracial marriage. Article 17 guarantees the right to property. This is yet another right included in reaction to the atrocities of the Holocaust, when property was confiscated from Jews and others, often to enrich Nazi officials. European Jews were stripped of billions of dollars worth of cash, artwork, houses, businesses, and personal belongings. Article 18 says we all have the right to our own beliefs, to have a religion, have no religion, or to change it. For its time, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was very progressive in asserting that believers of all religions and secular beliefs should be able to live peacefully with their rights guaranteed by the state, while not presuming any national or state-sponsored religion. Under Article 19, freedom of expression is protected in most spheres, and you are entitled to hold any opinion, no matter how foul it may be. But you are not entitled to the expression of that opinion if it amounts to any advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence. The drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights wrestled with the issue of how tolerant a tolerant society should be of people like Nazis and fascists, who themselves are intolerant. They were acutely conscious of the role played by the Nazi media and film industry in the creation of an environment that enabled the slaughter of 6 million Jews and other groups, such as the Roma and people with disabilities. After gaining power in 1933, the Nazis used a series of new laws and regulations to crush the independent media, substituting a rapid totalitarian propaganda machine in its place. Article 20, combined with Article 19's freedom of expression, together ensure the right to gather publicly or privately and collectively express, promote, pursue, and defend common interests. In 3 concise paragraphs, Article 21 outlines some of the fundamental principles of democracy. This article, in making core elements of democracy a fundamental human right, reflects the resounding statement in the preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that it is essential that human rights must be protected by rule of law, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression. Fresh in the mind of the drafters of the Universal Declarations of Human Rights was the election of Adolf Hitler through democratic processes and his subsequent rejection of the very same processes as a foundation for the democratic state. Instead, he advanced the Führerprinzip, leader principle, based on the philosophy that the best, strongest, and brightest should rule the weaker and less pure. Such a leader would command total obedience from those under him, and he was above and therefore could totally disregard the rule of law. In this respect, like so many others, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights can be seen as a key part of the world's attempt to inoculate itself against any future would-be dictators. Article 22, the second cornerstone of the Declaration, introduces Articles 23 to 27, in which economic, social, and cultural rights, the rights to which everyone is entitled as a member of society, are set out. These rights include the right to Social Security, the right to work, the right to equal pay for equal work, the right to rest and leisure, the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being, the right to education, and the right to participate in the cultural, artistic, and scientific life of the community. Among the concluding articles, Article 28 says that everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights can be fully realized. So far, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has concentrated on rights that every person has simply by virtue of being born human. Now Article 29 says the corollary of rights is duties. We all have a duty to other people, and we should protect their rights and freedom. At the heart of Article 30, rights are inalienable, is the idea that rights are indivisible. All the rights in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are connected to each other and are equally important. Article 30 has been called Limits on Tyrants. Working in the shadow of the Second World War, the drafters wanted to prevent fascists returning to power in Germany by, for example, taking advantage of freedom of expression and freedom to stand for election at the expense of other rights and freedoms. They were acutely aware that many of the atrocities inflicted by the Nazi regime were based on an efficient legal system, but with laws that violated basic human rights. Drafters were looking for an international legal framework to guard against excesses of individual countries and to prevent another war or Holocaust. The document presented to the United Nations as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 was not the detailed binding treaty that some of the delegates expected. As a declaration, it was a statement of principles with a notable absence of detailed legal formulas. Two documents representing binding international law flowing from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were agreed 18 years later: the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which together with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights make up the International Bill of Human Rights. Provisions in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were further elaborated by a number of other international instruments, including the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. All 193 UN member states subscribe to the Declaration, yet there is plenty of evidence that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as an attempt to set limits on power, has yet to live up to its promise. There is also plenty of evidence that it continues to inspire hope among the powerless.